Hello everyone, today we will be discussing about morphology. It is a branch of linguistics focusing on forms and words and so on. So stay tuned here. So today's discussions include morphology, word morphemes, types of morphemes, morph and allomorph. And our primary reading is from George Yule. So let's start the discussions. What is a word? What is a morpheme? What are type of morphemes? What is allomorph and what is morphology? Discuss it with your group. And after the discussions, continue checking these presentations. So first, the words. The definitions of words is quite difficult. As you have discussed before, can you describe what word problem is in these examples? Check if, for example, the first sentence, a flea and a fly in a flue were imprisoned. So what could they do? Said the flea, let us fly. Said the fly, let us flee. So they flew through a flaw in the flue. In addition to homonyms here, you will also listen to some homophones, including this one, the flea and the flea. Let's ask flee and fly. And the fly here, one of them is a verb, another one is a noun. And so they flew through a flaw in the flue. So see this one, flew. So there are some homonyms. You will hear some homophones as well here, which make it a bit confusing for some speakers understanding these sentences. That's why we need to understand the form of words to understand that the fly here, like in the third line, and the fly in the fourth line is different. Why, for example, flee and flee in the third line and in the fourth line, although they are literally different, but they sound almost quite the same. So that's why, what makes them different? It is the words which makes them different. So the problems in defining a word is that lexical items and syntactic rules are clash to one another. So for example, in English, fly can be a noun, which refers to a type of insect, and a fly, which refers to verb to fly, like in fly and flies. It is as well, for example, when you put additional morpheme flies to show that to show a singular, third person singular, like in the flies, it will be the same for that one. And when you add, for example, s ending s to show a plural. So the Latin shows different syntactic form for rosa or rose. You will have different syntactic forms, which make it easier for Latin. However, the syntactic rules in Latin is too detailed and very complicated for many. So that's why many people do not really learn Latin language anymore. Another example is from Welsh language, where tad, dad, tad, and net, depending on preceding sounds, can have different meaning too. So when you want to analyze words, you will need to find chunks. You will need to find sequences which are uninterruptible and mobile. So for example, fly and flew recur as self-contained units. They are not bound to another units. So that makes it self-contained units. And second, you need to decide how many lexical items are covered by each chunk. So for example, fly, it covers 2 lexical items. The first one is noun and the second one is verb. And the third rules is that you need to decide how many different chunks belong to the same lexical item. So for example, fly and flew, syntactically, this form belong to one lexical item, which is verb. While, for example, fly as a noun and another one is fleece as a noun, they are their lexical items is noun. Next, we go to morphemes. Morpheme is just like phonemes, but when phonemes is related with sounds, morphemes is related with words. So morphemes is the smallest syntactic units. For example, how many morphemes are on this sentence? So the sleepwalking albatross chant a dreamy lullaby. Then we can split this sentence into its smallest syntactic units. For example, like in this analysis, you will see here that walking is divided into walk and ing, while albatross is not divided. They are not alba plus tros. Chanted is divided into chant and ending ed. A dreamy, you see here, because we can split dreamy into dream and ending y. So it is a dreamy. So in the above sentence, there are some morphemes which only have one morpheme like the, albatross, and lullaby. It doesn't have additional morpheme. While, for example, dreamy, walking, and chanted have additional morpheme, which we will discuss further in this meeting. Each of alba and tros does not have meaning. So that's why albatross is considered as one morpheme, because when you split alba and tros, both alba and tros do not have particular meaning. So as we have remembered before, morpheme is the smallest meaningful units. There is no upper limit to the number of morphemes per word. You can, for example, definitely add as many morphemes as you want, but usually in each word, there will be just one basic word. And after that, there will be bound morphemes added on it. But sometimes it can be that in a word, there will be two free morphemes, as in the case of, for example, like coinage and also blending, as we discussed before. So in the word disestablishmentarianism here, so we got established as the free morphemes, and the additional anti-dismentarian as well as ism are additional bound morphemes, which can change the meaning as well as the lexical items of this particular word. Check the video by Dr. Sakil from University of West Anglia's Bristol on morphemes. Dr. Sakil talks about morphemes, types of morphemes, and functions of morphemes. It is quite good introductions on this topic. So next, compare the utterances which have partial similarity here. The first sentence, the dinosaur sniffed arrogantly and plunged forwards. The second one, the dinosaurs grunt loudly and edge backwards. See here, when you try to compare these items, these morphemes, you will see that some morphemes are consistent, while some others can be changed. Usually, the part which can be changed are considered as free morphemes, as well as also bound morpheme for some. But then the part which are highlighted here are additional morphemes which can be added and which can be moved or changed with something else. So here we can see that, for example, like arrogantly and loudly, we can assume that li here is a certain type of morphemes, because arrogant and loudly can be put into positions and added with these particular morphemes and have different meaning, as well as like added, plotted, and edge, because they are consistently shown here. So we can assume that ed here and the plot or edge are typically separable morphemes. So classify the types of morphemes in the Sleepwalking Albatross chant A Dreamy Lullaby. You will find certain types of morphemes before we discuss it. So the type of morphemes can be categorized into free and bound morpheme. A free morphemes is typically a morpheme which can stand by itself, while bound morphemes is linked together with another free morphemes. Look at this example. Teach and shock are both free morphemes, while the ending suffix re, prefix re, and suffix ness, and inflectional suffix s and ed are all bound morphemes. Free morphemes can further be classified into lexical and functional morphemes. The lexical morphemes have certain stages, positions like teach and shock, both are verbs, while functional morphemes are generally other classes in addition to the major classes, which has certain functions like and, the, and other demonstrative. The bound morphemes can be divided into derivational morphemes and inflectional morphemes. With derivational morphemes, it does not change the number, but it changed the lexical items. On the other hand, the inflectional change not the lexical items, but the quality, for example, like aspects and tenses and numbers. So what are the differences between all these morphemes in your opinions? And give some example for each morphemes types in English and in your first language. This is the discussions of morphemes, free versus bound morphemes. Morphemes can be divided into two big categories, free morphemes and bound morphemes. The free morphemes can stand by themselves as a single words like new, tour, and so on, while the bound morphemes cannot normally stand alone and are typically attached to another form, like affixes, re, ist, ati, as, and etc. The free morphemes further can be divided into lexical and functional morphemes. The lexical morphemes carry the content of the message, so we can convey and is easy to add to language because it is an open class. While the functional morphemes are difficult to add to the language, it's quite close classes of words like articles, conjunctions, and etc. See, with the open class is that you can add certain new words or new entries, like new vocabularies, new verbs, or new nouns. For example, right now you have Instagram, and you can create Instagrammable. You have Google, and you can create to Google or Googling and so on. With the functional morphemes, it is more difficult to add to the language because it's quite specific and closed. Like the article the, you may not be able to create another article to refer to a certain number or to refer to a certain meaning. The bound morphemes can be divided into derivational and inflectional morphemes. Derivational morphemes are forms which you use to make new words or different grammatical category from the stem. So for example, when you add suffix "man" in suffix in arrangement, it will change from arrange as a verb into arrangement as a noun. On the other hand, the inflectional morphemes only indicate the grammatical functions of a word, like adding plurality using suffix "s". So from football into footballs, big monkey into big monkeys. Here in monkeys, you add a suffix "s" to give plurality sense meaning. Morph and allomorph is quite similar concept like phoneme and allophone. Morphemes behave like phonemes. They consist of morph and their closely related sets, which we call it as allomorphs. See this example. For example, like a morpheme plural s in English has some allomorphs. When it is combined with some non-stop like bilabial not aspirated cats, it will become cats. While if you have stop dogs, it will become dogs with z sounds. But if you add plural s into a word or free morpheme which has ending s, it will become is, horses, horses. So more resources can be checked in this channel. There are some good videos which I found, and I recommended this for you because this is quite good introductions to morphology, and because the speaker described generally some terms in morphology clearly. So hopefully not too fast for many of you. Thank you so much. Do you have any question?